My name is Elias Vance, and for the last decade, I have lived a life of quiet contradiction. To the world of commerce and high finance, I am the founder and sole proprietor of Aria Holdings, a carefully cultivated portfolio of luxury lifestyle and hospitality brands. To my family, I am simply Eli, the sensitive, artistic son who drifted away from a promising future to pursue a hobby business, planning events. They imagine me arranging tea parties and christenings in a small, rented office somewhere in the city, forever the gentle disappointment in a family that values tangible, traditional success. The truth is, my office isn't small. It occupies the top floor of the Northlight Tower, a spire of glass and steel that I happen to own. From my desk, I can see the sweep of Port Blossom, a city that has been my canvas. Its waterways glitter under the sun, its parks are lush tapestries of green, and its skyline is a testament to ambition. I find a certain peace in this view, a silent acknowledgement of the world I've built in the shadow of my family's low expectations. The call that shifted the foundations of this quiet life came on a Tuesday morning, a day so ordinary it felt undeserving of the change it would bring. The air was crisp with the promise of autumn, and sunlight streamed through the panoramic windows, casting long shadows across the polished redwood of my desk. I was studying the schematics for a new eco-resort we were developing in the mountains, lost in the elegant lines and sustainable design, when my assistant, Sarah, buzzed through the intercom. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice its usual model of calm efficiency, "there's a call for you from a Ms. Amelia Croft at Whispering Pines Events." I felt a gentle warmth spread through my chest. Whispering Pines was one of my earliest acquisitions, a boutique event planning company I had nurtured from near bankruptcy into the most sought-after wedding coordinator in the region. And I knew exactly why they were calling. My younger brother, Leo, was getting married. "Put her through, Sarah," I said, a smile touching my lips. I remembered the conversation with my mother 6 months earlier. She had called me, her voice strained with a carefully constructed casualness that I knew was a prelude to a request. She spoke of the rising costs of everything, of how Leo and his fiancée, Clara, were trying so hard but were feeling overwhelmed by the expenses of the wedding they dreamed of. She never asked me for money directly. Our family didn't operate with such crassness. They hinted. They painted pictures of struggle and hoped I would fill in the empty spaces with my checkbook. I did. The day after her call, I authorized a transfer of $30,000 to Whispering Pines Events to be applied as an anonymous contribution to the Vance Miller wedding account. It was enough to cover the venue deposit and a significant portion of the catering, a silent gift to ensure my brother's happiness. They never needed to know its source. It was enough for me to know I had helped. "Elias Vance speaking," I answered. "Mr. Vance, good morning." "This is Amelia Croft," she began, her tone unusually hesitant. "I'm so sorry to bother you directly, but I'm calling about the Vance Miller wedding next month." "Amelia, it's no bother at all. Is everything all right?" There was a pause, filled with the faint rustle of paper. "Well, sir, that's what I'm calling about. I have some rather uncomfortable news regarding your invitation." I leaned back in my chair, the sunlight feeling suddenly less warm. I set my pen down beside the blueprints. "Go on." "Your family contacted our office yesterday," she said, her words measured and clearly rehearsed. "Specifically, your mother. She instructed us to remove you from the official guest list. She said there had been a family matter and that it was their collective decision that it would be best if you didn't attend the ceremony or the reception." The words didn't crash over me like a wave. They seeped in, a slow, cold tide rising from a place of old, familiar hurt. It wasn't shock I felt, but a profound and weary sadness. I had spent my entire adult life on the periphery of my own family, an observer to their close-knit world. This was just the formalization of a distance that had existed for years. "I see," I managed, my voice steady. It was a skill I had perfected, the art of emotional containment. "But that's not all, Mr. Vance," Amelia continued, her voice dropping lower. She also asked if the anonymous deposit of $30,000 could be retained. She said the family had already allocated those funds toward other non-refundable deposits and considered it a family contribution, regardless of your attendance. For a long moment, I said nothing. I stared out at the city I knew so intimately, at the landmarks that were part of my portfolio. The Serenity Point Hotel, its elegant facade gleaming by the water. The entire Hearth and Vine restaurant group, whose flagship location was hosting the rehearsal dinner. The Skylark Ridge Retreat, nestled in the hills beyond the city, where Leo's bachelor party was scheduled. My family knew these names. They patronized these establishments. They spoke of them with admiration, entirely unaware that their disappointing son, the one who never amounted to anything, was the silent architect behind them all. "Mr. Vance? Are you still there?" Amelia asked, her voice laced with concern. "Yes, Amelia, I'm here," I said, my tone as calm and gentle as the breeze rustling the trees in the plaza below. "I need you to do something for me. I'd like you to cancel the entire wedding." A sharp intake of breath on the other end. I'm sorry, what? "Sir, you can't be serious." "Perfectly serious. Please cancel the Vance Miller wedding. All of it. The venue, the caterers, the florist, the whole event." "But Mr. Vance," she stammered, panic coloring her words, "with all due respect, you're not the groom or the client on record. You can't just—" "Amelia," I interrupted, my voice still soft, but now edged with an authority she had never heard from me before. "What is the name of the parent company that owns Whispering Pines Events?" A confused silence. I believe it's Verdant Ventures, sir." "And who owns Verdant Ventures?" I prompted gently. More rustling. I could picture her in her chic, sun-drenched office, scrolling frantically through corporate filings on her computer. "Aria Holdings," she finally whispered, the name hanging in the air between us. "That's right," I affirmed. "And I am Elias Vance, the CEO and sole owner of Aria Holdings. So yes, Amelia, I can cancel this wedding. In fact, let's be thorough. Please cancel their booking at the Serenity Point Hotel as well. That's one of ours. And the contract with Hearth and Vine Catering, also ours. The floral arrangements from Bloom and Branch, the photography package from Silver Birch Studios, and the limousine service they booked through Apex Transit. All of them fall under the Aria umbrella. All of them are mine." The silence on the other end was absolute now, heavy with dawning comprehension. "But sir," she finally managed, her voice a faint echo of its earlier confidence. "The wedding is less than a month away. There are 200 guests. Deposits have been paid." "Cancel everything, Amelia," I repeated, a profound sense of clarity settling over me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. It was about establishing a boundary that had been trampled on for far too long. Refund any deposits paid directly by the guests for their accommodations at Serenity Point. As for the family, send them a final invoice for all outstanding cancellation fees, less the $30,000 deposit I paid. I'll be keeping that as compensation for the administrative trouble. Mr. Vance, this will ruin the wedding. They'll never find other vendors on such short notice. That," I said, looking out at my city, "is no longer my concern." After I hung up, I didn't move. I sat in the quiet of my office and let the past wash over me. It had been 10 years since I walked away from Westwood University's prestigious School of Architecture. I wasn't failing. I was at the top of my class. But during an internship with a world-renowned firm, I realized something profound. I didn't just want to design static buildings. I wanted to design dynamic experiences. I was fascinated by the alchemy of space, light, food, and human connection, the very essence of hospitality. My family saw it as an act of rebellion, a foolish flight of fancy. "You're throwing away a 6-figure starting salary to plan parties," my father had asked, his disappointment a palpable force in our sterile suburban living room. "Elias, be sensible." My brother, Leo, already on his own sensible path toward law school, had just shaken his head with a look of pitying concern. "Eli, it's a phase. You'll get it out of your system and come back to the real world." But their real world felt like a cage to me. My first company, which I cheekily named Epiphany Events, was born in my tiny studio apartment. I worked 18-hour days, fueled by cheap coffee and an unshakable belief in my vision. I learned everything from the ground up: contract negotiation, supply chain management, client relations, floral arrangement, and even basic plumbing when a pipe burst at one of my first rented venues. My family remained blissfully ignorant. At Christmas dinners, they would ask, "So, how's the little party business, Eli?" before turning their full attention to Leo's latest triumphs in mock trial competitions. 2 years in, I used every cent I had to buy a small, struggling event hall on the outskirts of the city. I spent 6 months renovating it myself, sleeping on a cot in the back office. When I told my family I'd bought my first commercial property, my mother smiled politely and said, "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Leo made the law review?" By year 5, Aria Holdings was born. I began acquiring complementary businesses, always looking for undervalued assets with potential. I bought a catering company whose brilliant chef was a terrible businessman, a florist with an incredible artistic eye but no distribution, and a small, family-owned hotel teetering on the brink of foreclosure. I never told my family I owned these places. When I would mention the Serenity Point Hotel in conversation, they would nod in recognition. "Oh yes, that lovely place by the marina. We should go there for our anniversary," my mother would say, never connecting it to her son's little business. The real growth came during an economic downturn that had other companies scrambling. I saw opportunity where others saw crisis. I acquired entire restaurant chains and resort properties, companies my family had known for years, all while they continued to see me as the aimless dreamer. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to the present. A text from my mother. "Elias, we need to discuss your recent attitude. Your coldness toward Leo and Clara is unacceptable. After much discussion, we feel it's for the best that you don't come to the wedding. It would only create tension. We will, of course, keep the money you offered to help with, as it has already been spent." A sad, hollow laugh escaped me. The sheer audacity of it was almost beautiful in its ignorance. I typed back a simple, placid reply. "Understood. Hope you all have a wonderful celebration." 30 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my father. His voice was tight, a string pulled taut with confusion and indignation. "Elias? I just received a very strange call from the coordinator at the Serenity Point. She claims our entire block of rooms has been canceled." Then the caterer called with a similar story. "There must be some kind of clerical error." "There's no error, Dad," I said calmly. "What do you mean, no error? This is outrageous. We have contracts." "You have contracts with businesses owned by Aria Holdings," I explained patiently. "And Aria Holdings is owned by me." The silence on the other end of the line was so complete I could hear the faint hum of my computer's cooling fan. "Elias, what on earth are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you, as a family, disinvited me from my own brother's wedding while simultaneously informing me you intended to keep the $30,000 I anonymously donated to pay for it. So, I canceled the services my companies were providing." His voice was a choked whisper. You paid for the wedding?" "The venue, the catering, the hotel block, the flowers, the photographer, the rehearsal dinner, the bachelor party weekend, the transportation," I listed them off, not with malice, but with a weary sense of finality. "They all run through companies I own." "Congratulations, Dad. You just uninvited the man who was bankrolling the entire event." Another chasm of silence. I could hear my mother's voice, frantic and muffled, in the background. "David, what is he saying? What's going on?" My father's voice, when it returned, was thin and reedy. "Elias, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding." "No," I said, and for the first time a sliver of the deep, buried pain surfaced in my tone. "The misunderstanding has been going on for 10 years. You made it perfectly clear I'm not welcome. Therefore, my businesses are not welcome either." "Businesses? Plural?" "Elias, what are you talking about? You plan children's parties." The absurdity of it, the sheer, unblinking blindness of his perception, almost made me laugh. After all this time, all the clues I had dropped, all the success I had tried to share, this was still his image of me. "Dad," I said, my voice softening again. It felt like I was explaining a complex concept to a child. "I own Aria Holdings. It's a private hospitality conglomerate. We own and operate 34 properties across 5 states, including hotels, resorts, and restaurants. We were valued at over $900 million at the end of the last fiscal year. I heard a sharp gasp, which I assumed was my mother. My father seemed incapable of speech. That's not possible, he finally stammered. It's all publicly available information, Dad. Check the business registries. Check the financial news. I was featured in Forbes last year. The quiet architect of a hospitality empire. I believe the article was titled. The muffled conversation in the background intensified. Then my mother came on the line, her voice trembling. Elias? Honey? We had no idea. You had no idea because you never listened, I said, the sadness returning. I tried to tell you. Every holiday, every birthday, for 10 years. Remember when I told you I'd bought that struggling hotel by the marina? You told me it was nice I was keeping busy. When I told you I was expanding into resort management, you asked me when I was going to settle down and get a real job like Leo. But you left Westwood to do this, she asked, her voice filled with a dawning, horrified awe. I left Westwood because of this, I corrected her gently. I saw a path you couldn't see. While Leo was studying for the bar, I was leveraging assets and building an enterprise from nothing. My father cleared his throat, his voice regaining a fraction of its usual bluster, now undermined by desperation. Elias, son, surely we can work something out. This is your brother's wedding. My brother's wedding is no longer my problem. You made that choice for me, remember? My other line began to beep. It was Sarah, patching through another call. I could guess who it was. Dad, I have to go. Elias, wait. I clicked over. Elias Vance. Mr. Vance, it's Amelia. I am so sorry to bother you again, but my phone has not stopped ringing. Your father, your mother, your brother, even the bride's parents. They are frantic. They're begging me to rebook everything. And what have you told them? The truth, sir. That on less than a month's notice, it's impossible. Every reputable venue in the Port Blossom area is booked solid. The best caterers are committed. There are simply no high-end alternatives available. What about the Willows Pavilion? I asked, picturing the property. It was my smallest, most intimate venue, a beautiful, glass-enclosed space set within a botanical garden. Elegant, but a fraction of the size and grandeur of the Serenity Point ballroom they had booked. That's one of your properties too, sir. And it happens to be free that weekend. An international conference canceled last week. An idea began to form, not out of spite, but out of a desire for a different kind of justice. A restorative justice. All right, Amelia. Here is the solution you can offer them. They can have the wedding at the Willows Pavilion. Maximum capacity is 80 guests, not 200. They can have our standard catering package, not the custom menu they designed. House floral arrangements only. Our junior staff photographer for 4 hours. The total cost for this revised package is $150,000, payable in full, in advance. Amelia gasped. Sir, that's 5 times what they were originally paying for a fraction of the services and space. That's the offer, Amelia, I said calmly. It's the price of doing business on short notice with a fully booked vendor. They wanted to exclude me from their family celebration while benefiting from my generosity. Now, they can have the privilege of including me in their business decisions while paying the market rate. If they decline, I added, they are more than welcome to get married at the courthouse. I hung up and returned to my blueprints. For the first time in hours, I felt a sense of peace. The ball was no longer in my court. 3 hours later, Leo called. His voice was a raw mix of fury and panic. Eli? What the hell is going on? Mom is hysterical. Dad sounds like he's aged 10 years. I've been on the phone all afternoon with vendors who all tell me the same insane story, that you own their companies. What kind of twisted game are you playing? It's not a game, Leo. It's business, I replied, my voice even. Business? This is my wedding. The most important day of my life. Your wedding that I was financing. Your wedding that I was uninvited from. Your wedding that my own family decided I was not good enough to attend. Let's not forget those details. We just thought, with your attitude lately, it would be less awkward, he faltered. My attitude? I echoed. a genuine curiosity in my voice. My attitude of being quietly hurt that the people I love have shown zero genuine interest in my life for a decade. You thought it would be less awkward to take my money and then ask me to disappear? Tell me, Leo, as a lawyer, does that sound like ethical family behavior to you? He was quiet for a moment. A long, heavy moment. We didn't know the money was from you, he said, his voice smaller now. Mom said a family friend wanted to help out anonymously. And you never once thought to ask who that friend might be? You never once considered it could be your own brother? It never occurred to you because you've already written the story of my life. Eli, the aimless artist. The family screw-up. It was easier to believe in a mysterious benefactor than to believe in me. The silence stretched on, thick with everything left unsaid between us for 10 years. Leo, I continued, my tone softening. When was the last time you asked me a question about my work and actually listened to the answer? I could hear his breathing on the other end, shallow and uneven. He had no answer. I'll make you a deal, I said, deciding to extend the first branch of a bridge. You can have your wedding. But I want 3 things. First, a formal, in-person apology from you, Mom and Dad. Second, a full acknowledgement from all of you that you misjudged me and a promise to try to know the real me, not the version you invented. And third, my invitation restored. Not as a courtesy, but because you genuinely want your brother there on your wedding day. Eli, of course we want you there, he said quickly. Do you? I asked gently. Or do you want my resources there? Be honest with yourself, Leo. He sighed, a long, ragged sound of defeat. That's not fair. Fair is a concept you and the family might want to review, I replied. You have my terms. Talk it over with Clara and our parents. The offer for the Willows Pavilion is on the table until 5 o'clock tomorrow. That evening, an unexpected call came. It was Clara, Leo's fiancée. Elias? It's Clara. I hope it's all right that I'm calling. Clara. Of course. Congratulations on your engagement, I said, my voice warming slightly. I had always liked her. She had a kindness in her eyes that seemed out of place in my family's transactional world. Thank you, she said, then took a deep breath. Listen, Elias. I am so sorry. I had no idea about any of this. Leo never told me you were helping with the costs, and I certainly didn't know about Aria Holdings. Most people don't. I prefer it that way. I've been looking it up all afternoon, she confessed, a note of awe in her voice. It's incredible. The Skylark Ridge Retreat? I used to cut out pictures of it from magazines when I was a teenager. I can't believe. She trailed off. It's been a busy decade, I said simply. Elias, you are owed a massive apology. From all of us, but especially from me. I was there when your mother and Leo were talking about the guest list. I didn't say anything. I should have. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. Honestly, she said, her voice laced with shame. Because I believed the story they told me. Leo, he always painted you as this charming but irresponsible dreamer. The black sheep. He made it sound like your presence would cast a shadow on the day. I see now. The only shadow was their own prejudice. Leo doesn't know you, Elias. Not at all. None of them do. She paused, and I could hear the emotion thickening her voice. I would be honored to have you at our wedding. Not because of your company or your money, but because you are Leo's brother and you have shown more grace and family loyalty in this mess than any of them deserved. What does Leo say? I asked. Leo is in a state of shock, she said with a humorless laugh. He's recalibrating his entire universe. His failure of a big brother is suddenly the person he should have been looking up to all along. It's a lot for his ego to process. And your parents, they're terrified. They're realizing they've spent years patronizing the most successful person they know. Success isn't just about money, Clara. No, she agreed softly. It's also about character. And your character has been proven. Theirs is very much in question. The next day, just before noon, Amelia called. Mr. Vance, your family has accepted your terms. The wire transfer for the full amount for the Willows Pavilion package just came through. They have also formally requested that your invitation be reinstated. And the other conditions? I asked. Yes, sir. Your father called me himself. He asked me to convey that the family would like to schedule a meeting with you, at your convenience, to offer their formal apology. And your brother asked if you would still consider being his best man. I leaned back in my chair and looked out at the city skyline, at the silent monuments to my 10 years of unrecognized work. A decade of building an empire in plain sight. A decade of waiting for my family to see me. Amelia, I said. Yes, sir. Tell them the meeting is on. This Saturday. 2 o'clock. My private dining room at the Skylark Ridge Retreat. Yes, sir. And Amelia? Sir. Make sure the catering is unforgettable. The private dining room at Skylark Ridge is my favorite space in my entire portfolio. Carved into the mountainside, one entire wall is a sheet of glass offering a 100-mile view of the valley below. The table is a single, massive piece of polished oak, and the air smells faintly of pine and wood smoke from the grand stone fireplace. I arrived early and stood by the window, watching a hawk ride the thermal currents. This resort was my riskiest acquisition, a decaying lodge I had poured my heart and soul into transforming. It was a physical manifestation of my entire philosophy, to find the beauty in what others have discarded. They arrived together, a tight, nervous phalanx. My father, my mother, Leo, and Clara. They stopped just inside the doorway, their faces a mixture of awe and apprehension as they took in the room. Elias, my father said, his voice husky. He walked forward, not offering a handshake, but just standing before me, his eyes filled with a new, unsettling uncertainty. Have a seat, I said, gesturing to the table. As they sat, servers I had personally trained began to bring out the first course, a delicate arrangement of locally foraged mushrooms and truffle foam. This place, it's breathtaking, my mother whispered, her gaze sweeping the room. I tried to tell you about it when I bought it 4 years ago, I said, my voice gentle, not accusatory. I said I was developing a mountain property. You said that sounded like a lot of fresh air. My father cleared his throat, his eyes fixed on his water glass. Elias, we are here to apologize. Profoundly. He looked up, and for the first time in my life, I saw him stripped of his paternal certainty. He just looked like a man who knew he had made a terrible mistake. We misjudged you. Completely. We saw what we wanted to see, what was convenient for our worldview. And we were wrong. Leo leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. Eli, I'm so sorry, he said, his voice raw. I was an arrogant idiot. I was so focused on my own prescribed path to success that I couldn't see you were blazing a trail of your own. I'm sorry for dismissing you, for pitying you, and most of all, for allowing you to be uninvited from my wedding. It was a cowardly, shameful thing to do. Why though? I asked, needing to understand. Why was it so easy for all of you to believe I was a failure? Because you didn't follow the rules, my father answered, his voice heavy with self-reproach. You left a great school. You didn't take a corporate job. You didn't give us the easy, recognizable benchmarks of success we understood. You never bragged. Would bragging have made a difference? No, he admitted. And that's the heart of it. We should have seen the substance, not looked for the style. We failed you. Clara reached across the table and put her hand on my arm. We want to start over, Elias. As a real family. We want to know you. I held my father's gaze. A genuine question, Dad. If I hadn't built all this, if I was still just planning small events out of a rented office, but was happy and fulfilled, what then? He didn't flinch. He answered with brutal, painful honesty. Then we probably would have gone on misjudging you forever. And that's the most shameful part of all. That honesty, more than anything else, broke through the final wall around my heart. My mother was weeping softly into her napkin. I am so proud of you, Elias. Not just for all this, she gestured vaguely at the opulent room, but for the man you are. You had every right to turn your back on us. And instead, you still offered to help. You're my family, I said quietly. That's always mattered to me. Even when it didn't seem to matter to you. Leo stood up and walked around the table to stand beside me. He looked down at me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. I know I have no right to ask. But I have to ask again. Eli, will you be my best man? I looked at my younger brother, the golden child, the one who had always lived in the warm sunlight of our parents' approval. And I saw the cracks in his perfect facade, the dawning humility. He was finally seeing me. Of course I will, Leo, I said. I'd be honored. The wedding, 3 weeks later at the Willows Pavilion, was beautiful. The smaller guest list made it feel intimate and deeply personal. The glass walls of the pavilion seemed to bring the surrounding gardens inside, and as dusk fell, strings of fairy lights glowed to life in the ancient willow trees. During my best man speech, I looked out at the faces of my family. Success is a funny word, I began, my voice steady. We're taught to think of it as a ladder, a straight climb up a preordained path. For a long time, my family, and maybe even my brother, saw me as someone who had gotten off the ladder entirely. What they didn't realize, and what took me a long time to understand myself, is that I wasn't climbing a ladder. I was planting a garden. I paused, looking at my parents, then at Leo. You can't see the progress of a garden day by day. You just have to trust in the seeds you've planted, water them, and protect them. You have to have faith in the quiet, unseen growth happening just beneath the surface. Leo and Clara, I said, raising my glass. May your life together be a beautiful garden. Nurture it. Have faith in it. And never be afraid to let it grow in ways you never expected. The most beautiful things often do. Later that night, as the party wound down, my father found me on the terrace, overlooking the moonlit gardens. That was a hell of a speech, son. Thanks, Dad. He stood beside me, sipping his champagne. Why, Eli? Why didn't you just tell us? A photo of you on the cover of a magazine, a financial statement. Why let us be so blind for so long? I thought for a moment, watching the fireflies dance in the darkness. Because I didn't want you to be proud of what I owned, I said softly. I wanted you to be proud of who I was. I wanted you to see the value in the risk I took, in the passion I followed. I wanted your respect for the work, not the wealth. I guess I needed to know that your love wasn't conditional on the kind of success you understood. He put a heavy hand on my shoulder, his touch no longer paternalistic, but simply paternal. We failed that test, didn't we? You did, I admitted. But you passed the one that mattered more. Which one was that? Today, I said. When you chose humility over pride. When you chose to apologize instead of making excuses. That's worth more to me than a decade of recognition. He nodded, his eyes glistening in the moonlight. I'm proud of you, Elias. Not for the buildings or the businesses. I'm proud of your heart. You're a better man than I am. Driving home that night, the city lights of Port Blossom spread out before me like a carpet of jewels. My phone buzzed with a text from Leo. Thank you for everything, Eli. I'm sorry it took me so long to see you. I'm the luckiest man in the world to have you as a brother. I smiled and typed back a simple reply. Welcome to the family business. The next morning, I woke to a flurry of messages. Not just congratulations about the wedding, but texts from my mother, father, and Leo. When can we all have dinner? No occasion. Just family. Sitting in my office on Monday, looking out at the skyline I had helped shape, a final, peaceful understanding settled in me. I had spent so many years thinking success was about proving my family wrong. But I realize now that true success, the kind that fills the quiet spaces in your soul, isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about having the strength, the grace, and the love to give them the chance to be right. And if you're patient enough, sometimes they take it.